Welcome to the NXT Podcast, your home for weekly NXT reviews and insight.
The beautiful part of NXT is that when one dream ends, another dream begins.
Find all of your NXT news, recaps, and analysis right here. So with that being said, we only have one question for you.
Are you ready?
We thought so. Let's get the show started right now.
Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NXT Podcast. I'm Zachary Smith. I'm very excited to be with you here today. We're building up for our next premium live event, so we're still setting things up for that. We got plenty of time to work through that and figure out what everybody's doing. Solid step in that direction. Now, we usually talk about the news, stuff that's going on. So what did I miss? Right? Doesn't seem like a ton. Big E got his neck broken, which was terrible. Luckily, he's okay. He's not going to have surgery, so that's fantastic. No idea how long he's going to be out, but being the guy he is, almost immediately put out a video telling people not to worry about him, because that's the kind of guy he is. For somebody that they were not interested any longer in being the champion or a champion to represent their company in outside affairs, Big E keeps having these examples of when he handles things like what you would want one of your old world champions to do. So if his character doesn't get anything from having been in main events, the man certainly did, because he got a chance to show everyone that this was not a fluke, like I'm ready to do this in several different ways. So best thoughts to him. He seems to be upbeat about it, or at least he's doing a good job of faking it, one of those. But either way, that was kind of the big thing that happened. So we usually talk about the news stuff that's going on. The other thing I missed was some WrestleMania setup with old Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins here. Now, Kevin Owens has something to do at WrestleMania. He's having a Kevin Owens show with Stone Cold. It was a little confusing as to whether that was going to be a match or like just a talking segment. Seems like it's just going to be a talking segment. I certainly hope it's not Kevin Owens just being a bad guy, and then they hit a stunner, and that's it, because that's not a lot, but that feels like what they're going to do. Kevin Owens is absolutely talented enough to go back and forth with Stone Cold. I don't think they're going to give you a chance to see that, but I just want you to know that. So he's got a plan, right? He's all good. Guy who doesn't, Seth Rollins, who, I mean, has maybe the greatest WrestleMania moment of all time when he cashed in and won that title. He's beaten Brock one-on-one for that title at a WrestleMania. A guy who, like, in the storyline of your company should be a featured member of a WrestleMania, right? So I would think then that you would want to have him, in a featured spot. So instead of like that, they decided to do the story of like, oh man, we don't have WrestleMania matches because we're dorks and we can't get anybody to fight us. And we're not going to fight each other just because, but we're dorks and we're losers. And Kevin Owens literally has to call out an aged legend who retired a long time ago to give him a WrestleMania match, or rather, moment. And listen, that's maybe not the biggest deal in the world, but it kind of is the whole WWE system in a storyline. And also doesn't make Kevin Owens super important. Add that to the list of Roman Reigns opponents that they didn't do anything with after. So that's fine. At least he's doing something, right? Now, Seth, on the other hand, got nothing to do. And we're getting real close to WrestleMania. And obviously we know that at some point he's going to be facing Cody Rhodes. So Cody Rhodes, it's been reported that he is all, like, his contract is signed. They're just, they haven't debuted him yet. So it would seem to me then that the plan would be to just have Cody come out on a Raw, and then you somehow work your way into a WrestleMania program with him and Seth Rollins. Now, that match could be fun. The promos could be fun. The problem is we're not leaving a lot of time for them. If perhaps he had debuted a couple of weeks ago, then they would have time to build this up. Because if we were back a few years after The Rock and Stone Cold were both gone, and they both showed up on a Raw, and they went into one feud with each other to pop a WrestleMania, I would kind of understand that storyline-wise. The Rock and Stone Cold don't like each other. They both think they're the best. They had a legendary rivalry. That's kind of a plug-and-play situation. Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes don't have a ton in common with this character that Seth does and whatever Cody is. So, presumably you're banking then on the shock of Cody Rhodes debuting, right? Which I don't know about that. And then you're banking on it's a match for him to have. So, few problems. I'm not going to care about a microwaved story. The biggest match, or one of the biggest matches going into WrestleMania, probably isn't going to be the one that we set up a week before WrestleMania. I think we're maybe overestimating the reaction to Cody Rhodes suddenly appearing again, because WWE makes a big deal of the internet wrestling community is not the majority. It's a loud voice but a small one kind of thing. And that's fine, but if your crowds at WrestleMania were all IWC fans who know that Cody was one of the founders of AEW, and it really is a pretty big deal that he's gone back to WWE. But WrestleMania is not attended by and is not made for the internet wrestling community or wrestling fans. And I don't mean that disparagingly necessarily. They're for entertainment fans. We're doing a Sami Zayn cast of Jackass story still. Stone Cold is coming back and hasn't wrestled since the early 2000s because of a neck injury. One of the best wrestlers in your company, Seth Rollins, in storyline is not good enough to have had a match with anybody, including, before all this, his best friend, when they could have just said, hey, let's fight. So I think maybe because your crowds at WrestleMania and leading up to it are less hardcore fans and more casual fans that you think want more entertainment, those fans aren't going to know or particularly care that Cody is a founding member of AEW. They're probably not going to mention it a lot. And the last time WWE fans would have seen Cody Rhodes, it's one of two options. They either have not seen him and do not know who he is, so you're debuting some guy. I know we know who Cody Rhodes is, but a fan that started watching a couple of years ago probably has no idea. Or if you do know who he is, then if you're a WWE loyalist, then you will remember him as Stardust. And Stardust and Goldust had some fun matches. There was a Battleground pay-per-view where they had to win for their jobs or something. Dusty was at ringside. It was against the Shield. It was a really great reaction from that crowd. I'm not saying he didn't have cool moments. I am saying that what he was not, what he never was a star. He was put in a stable with Ted DiBiase Jr. and Randy Orton. They were called Evolution. It was going to build these two guys up and keep Randy Orton, viable as a bad guy. And what happened is Ted DiBiase left wrestling. Cody Rhodes was made no better for it, and Randy Orton just beat both of them up most of the time. He was never anything. He made a I'm going to wear this nose guard face mask thing because I'm ugly and all these fans are ugly. He made that fun. but like that guy was never going to be world champion. And I don't know that it's because of anything about Cody. I think it's because of the way that they used Cody. Cody was never a star, and he was never going to be. That was decided. It doesn't matter that you're a Rhodes. The McMahons don't respect last names that aren't theirs. So he's going to come back, and it's going to either be like, I don't know who this is, or, hey, isn't that Stardust, dude? And so you're just going to watch Seth Rollins come up with a reason to want to fight this person, and a reason why this person thought it was so important to come back to fight Seth Rollins that they're going to just debut here right in front of WrestleMania. I don't understand what the hook would be for this match, because I watch AEW and NXT. I've been fascinated. I was fascinated for maybe a week by the Cody Rhodes stuff. And then you know what happened? It kept happening, and nothing new happened, and he was coy about it, and there was no new information. I stopped caring. I don't care. So I'm not watching the show every week hoping Cody debuts. I'm just gonna watch the replay on Twitter when he debuts. And then I'm probably going to watch WrestleMania at some point, but when that match is video packaged at the beginning, I'm not going to go, oh, hell yeah, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be, oh, right, well, if you need to make a sandwich or something, then you can do it here, because that's not an interesting story, and I've never been super into Cody matches. Seth Rollins is really great, but that's just a wrestling match that you're doing. And the way you set it up made me care about Seth less. So what are we doing here? So anyway, that's WrestleMania. So NXT. We're starting off with a ladder match qualifier. This is for the North American title. Roderick Strong with Malcolm Bivens versus Solo Sikoa. That's a hard name to say. It never feels like you said it right, I guess. Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams are on commentary for this match. Nailed it. Santos Escobar came out later and did that thing where you watch the people in the ring. Like you're watching them, you're taking mental notes. Roger Strong had like control of the most of the match, but Solo Sikoa ends up knocking him off the top rope. Hits the splash and then wins, and he qualifies for that North American ladder title match. That's fine. You seem to be doing something else with Roderick Strong and Diamond Mine. He's not going to win the North American title, so you might as well put a new guy in here. This is a little bit like what they did with Lars Sullivan. Like, this guy hasn't really been on TV much. We don't know a lot about him, but we are going to throw him in this ladder match to get some experience. Now, I imagine Solo Sikoa will be more interesting and will have less red flags about him than Lars Sullivan, but that's kind of what they do sometimes. So fine. Tony D'Angelo versus Dexter Loomis. So, like, they're having a good match. D'Angelo gets a crowbar, hits Loomis in the face. Tony hits that swinging neck breaker, and he wins. Tony's trying to cut a promo, but Tommaso Ciampa interrupts him. He's been a busy dude, going on Raw, going on NXT. He hits him with the fairy tale ending. He says he's going to write his own fairy tale ending at Stand and Deliver. So that's good. Ending was weird, but it's fun to see Ciampa back in NXT. Didn't know if we'd see that. And Tony D'Angelo is just a fascinating character. I have been the host for the original NXT, or rather 1.0. I was the host for when those vignettes of Tony D'Angelo started and thought, certainly that won't work. And then he debuted, and the vignettes were so ridiculous that when he debuted, everybody was like, yeah, sure, whatever, let's cheer him. And now he's just a guy that's like one of their guys. He's not the top tier of guy, but he's right in there, which is weird. I don't know. You know? So that's fine. That's what we have. Braun Breaker versus Robert Rood with Dolph Ziggler, NXT champion Dolph Ziggler. They're trying to sell you on Robert Rood's glorious one, like, character, and it's easy to forget that Robert Rood was NXT champion. I always thought that NXT Robert Rood was just kind of a cool theme song. And I know Robert Rood is very talented, and I know that he's a very good world champion. I saw it in TNA. But something when he got to NXT just wasn't there, and it never connected with me. I don't know if people really liked him. I don't know. But I just always thought it was very boring. I thought it was just standard kind of bad guy stuff. And again, I thought the theme song was really cool. But after the theme song, I didn't have a lot that I cared about. And so, then he goes to the main roster. I'm still not sure why. Does a lot of nothing. He does something the first couple weeks when people who don't watch NXT but do watch Raw or SmackDown heard that theme song for the first time, and everybody was like, oh my God, this is the best. So every time you saw Robert Rood, the song was playing, so people got really into it. And then nothing. And here he is all this time later, teaming with Dolph Ziggler, who were both doing nothing, except now Dolph Ziggler's the NXT champion. So, at some point, Dolph Ziggler gets thrown out of the match because he's trying to do too much. And obviously, Braun Breaker beats Robert Rood. Stop it. Dolph Ziggler super kicks Braun Breaker afterward. What are we doing, you know? Dolph Ziggler as NXT champion is still one of those things, I really like Dolph Ziggler, so I'm actually fine with it. I was never under any illusion that Braun Breaker would be sticking around for an extended period of time. I figured we had until Vince McMahon noticed him, for example. So, it was never going to be Braun Breaker's been NXT champion for a calendar year. There was no way that Vince was not going to notice him by then. And lo and behold, Vince noticed him. He was on an episode of Raw, and then now he's not the NXT champion anymore, and he's moving on because they see potential, and it's hard not to see potential, in fairness. And they're going to try and start making money with that immediately. Now, I can understand the sentiment there, certainly. This person is going to make us money if we do this right, so let's get him out here to a place where he can earn us some money. Got that. But I thought the entire point now of NXT 2.0 was to prepare the future stars of tomorrow. And if that's what we're doing, then why would you take somebody out of the developmental thing clearly before they're developed? Braun Breaker's very good. Braun Breaker hasn't been given that much to do. He kind of just got here. He's had a couple of promos. He's had a few matches. He's been in a few stare downs, and he's been champion once. So he got a taste of what the main roster is like, certainly. But he's like a new wrestler, and he hasn't had a ton of time to develop. Now, if you're just going to use your developmental, and then once you notice somebody with potential, you're just going to bring them up to the main roster, then that kind of means that the rest of the people in developmental are just kind of in a holding pattern until either you see a potential in them or there's a very specific thing you want them to do on your roster. So if we're going to do that, then what's the difference between a Robert Rood and a Kevin Owens? Robert Rood was just kind of there. Kevin Owens was the best character and best talker bad guy that I had seen to that point. So if Braun Breaker's so clear and way better, then what am I doing with the rest of them? It just seems like we're also kind of pulling him up too soon, and just because they're more in control of the system now of NXT doesn't mean they're going to get any better at recognizing when it's time to bring that out or give that a chance. But here we are, and whatever we say here, Braun Breaker's going to the main roster. He has all of the tools and potential to do that. But I've said a million times that WWE's not interested in new stars. They say they are, but do no work to the contrary. And I tend to lean towards believing what people do rather than what they say they're going to do or want to do. So, that's kind of what we have. So next ladder qualifying match is Grayson Waller versus A-Kid. So our second match on the show, trying to build up that ladder match. And obviously Grayson Waller wins that match. I mean, A-Kid is a very good wrestler, but like Grayson Waller was gonna win. So it was a really fun match. It didn't get a lot of time. Solo Sikoa did that thing from earlier where he comes out and watches the match very closely. So afterward, Carmelo Hayes gave A-Kid, Cameron Grimes, and Roderick Strong like a second chance in a triple threat match, and the winner goes on to qualify. Seems like Cameron Grimes should win that. So yeah, Grayson Waller should have been in that match. So, that works. Creed Brothers beat the Grizzled Young Veterans, which was just kind of a setup because there was a mystery team that like showed up on the Titantron, and they just kind of like broke up Diamond Mine's like training room thing. So there's a mysterious faction after Diamond Mine. Maybe this would, maybe this would work if I cared about Diamond Mine. Maybe it would, I don't know. Probably would. That seems like Diamond Mine is the foundation upon which this is built. And that's a shaky foundation for me. But so here we are. And it's going to be some kind of multi-person tag match. I don't know what the other faction is. They didn't do a great job with this one, so I don't have a super big amount of confidence they're going to nail it this time. But, what do I know other than a lot of stuff that I've observed over just the course of doing this show, for example. Anyway, that should be fun to unravel that mystery together, huh? Gunther with Imperium versus Duke Hudson with Pirata, I think. I wrote it, I meant to write it phonetically, and the autocorrect messed it up. Backstage, Persia says that Duke Hudson can beat anyone, and Dexter Loomis kind of drew Gunther, see if he was up for that challenge. He did okay for a second, but then Gunther beat him, obviously. He won with that powerbomb. Then he's talking smack about Ellie Knight, and then Ellie Knight shows up to challenge him. Imperium attacks Ellie Knight. MSK make the save. LA Knight versus Gunther, not a thing that I thought I was going to see in NXT. That's not, if you had told me Gunther was coming, the matches that I had in my head did not necessarily include LA Knight, but I like it. That should be a fun feud for them to have. You got MSK to deal with Imperium, so that should be fun. LA Knight's better in the ring than you think he is. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. Gunther's still a bad name, obviously. We have the finals of the Women's Dusty Classic, Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray versus Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu. There was one serious team here and one joke team, and you could have, I suppose, gone either way. But they went with the serious team. So, Io Shirai specifically and Kaylee Ray are really great wrestlers, and so are Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu. But Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu's characters are both a little bit ridiculous, and they're kind of aimless, and Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray are just badasses. And I would like to take this opportunity to tell you that Io Shirai might have had one of the best runs by a woman in WWE, much less just NXT. Like, Asuka had a great run with that women's title and literally left NXT and dropped the belt on her way out because nobody came close. So in terms of dominance, be Asuka. In terms of just like accomplishment, like women's champion, tournament winner, award winner, tag champion, women's Dusty Classic winner. Like, she's kind of done everything she's literally done everything you can do in NXT. Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray aren't like a team. They're two people that happen to be a team. So after the match, Mandy Rose is taunting the winners. Confetti's falling. Io Shirai and Dakota Kai surprised that say that they were. I'm sorry. Io Shirai was like surprised them somehow by saying they were cashing in that title opportunity to make that women's title match a fatal 4-way. And then Cora Jade joins. They send Toxic Attraction running. So fatal 4-way tag match for those women's titles. That could be fun. Those women's tag titles don't mean anything, but they're on Toxic Attraction, which are kind of the best thing going in NXT. And a fatal 4-way women's tag could be a lot of fun. Multi-people tag matches, especially if they're like tornado style, are usually pretty good. They're usually fun. They're usually like a car crash. I think that could be a lot. I think that could be really good, rather. I'm excited about that, where I wouldn't have been if it was just like a one-on-one match for titles that don't mean anything. Don't get me wrong. I wanted them to mean something. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez couldn't beat whoever the women's tag champs were. Was it Bayley and Sasha? And they thought they won, but they didn't. And instead of getting a rematch for those titles, Regal just created new tag titles. And so it was just done like that. And so it was just like secondhand titles that don't mean anything. But all these women are very good. And I think that this match is going to be fun. This is underrated. The story's not super solid on this match, but it's got some of the most personal grudge of any of the feuds that have materialized so far, and it could be really good. The card is shaping up. We have our tag match. We almost have our ladder match set. We know Braun is challenging Dolph for that NXT title. It's going to be weird if Braun loses, because if Braun loses, I don't think he's on NXT the next week. I think he's just gone to the main roster, and I think he's going to, because I think they want him on the main roster yesterday, which means that Dolph Ziggler is going to continue to be your NXT champion. And I guess my question would be, who's the person you're going to use him to put over? Because you could feed people to him right now to help change the perception of Dolph Ziggler as this person who does not win big matches or compete well in storyline in big situations. But now he's the champion. You want him to look credible if he's going to have your brand's title on him. So you feed him a few people. Who's the one that beats him? Do we have Carmelo lose the North American title in this ladder match, and then it's Carmelo Hayes? Because next to Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes is very clearly, to me, the one with the most potential that's in NXT, barring an Io Shirai, who I think has best woman on the roster potential. So I would think then that Carmelo Hayes would be our most likely person to dethrone Dolph Ziggler. Again, short of Braun Breaker, he's the only one that I could see believably doing so right now. You could heat somebody up. Maybe Dolph Ziggler goes on a long run and Solo Sikoa is the one that works his way up. Maybe it's Duke Hudson. I could see that. But right now it's Carmelo Hayes, and I don't see Carmelo Hayes losing steam anytime soon. I see him just getting better and better. And if you started him with the North American title, I think Carmelo Hayes will hold that NXT title someday. I think maybe give Dolph a few-month run here, heat Carmelo up even more, and go from there. Then Carmelo wins, then they can feud with like Grayson Waller, and I think that would be a great feud for him out of the gate. Boom, I did it for you. There you go, you're welcome. Braun, have fun on the main roster. I sincerely hope that they know what to do with you, but their history indicates that they don't, but you're very talented. So that's it for the NXT this week. Again, headed right to Stand and Deliver, getting ready for it. I'm pretty excited about it. I think the matches will be good. That's kind of been the weird thing about NXT 2.0. On the premium live events, the wrestling's still pretty good. It's not what it was, but it's close enough. Let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter. I'm at ZachNXT, at ZACHNXT. But for this week, that's it for NXT, so that's it for me. I have been Zachary Smith, and you have been fantastic, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.